much a flexing of muscles that don't need to be flexed. They don't have to play this year on Saturday, December 19th. They don't have to play that Saturday. That Saturday is a triple header of college football first-round playoff games. And the NFL has decided that it is going to have a doubleheader on that Saturday with, how about these games, at least on paper? Seattle at Philadelphia at 5, and then Chicago at Buffalo at 8:20. I don't like that. I don't think it's necessary. I wish they wouldn't do that. And they needed to do it 2 years ago because Christmas was on a Wednesday, and the only way to get the Netflix doubleheader games with an adequate amount of rest was to play games on that Saturday. I understood that, but they did not need to do that this year. They did it anyway, and it just puts football fans, look, in this country, the NFL's 1 and college football's 2. And then, you can count 50 spaces before you get to whatever number 3 is. But that time of year to have college football own that particular Saturday and the Friday night, because they play one of those playoff games on Friday night, I think the NFL could have stayed away from that personally. But they decided not to. By the way, the Bears play Thanksgiving and Christmas. Good for them. The Rams play Christmas and Thanksgiving Eve. Washington didn't get Thanksgiving or Christmas this year, which for some of us is a good thing. I've said this before, I've always hated when we've gotten the Thanksgiving Day games, but that's selfish and personal because we end up having to work on those days. But I will tell you this, that when Washington plays Dallas on Thanksgiving Day and we get to that, it's kind of exciting to be in that big spot, even though the results haven't been great, over the years. There is something, I think, over the years that's special about Washington and Dallas on Thanksgiving Day, but we don't get that. We get Philly in Dallas. And remember, last year, Mike North, one of the schedule makers, came on, and I said, why Washington, Philadelphia twice late in the season? Why not Washington for Philadelphia in the kickoff classic? And he said that from a schedule maker's standpoint, even after Washington's exciting 2024 season, the most protected assets in the NFC East are the 2 Philadelphia-Dallas games. There was a time when it was the 2 Washington-Dallas games. Not anymore. All right. Washington's schedule. So there are a couple of things about the schedule that I want to get to. Number one is the start. Let me preface what I'm going to say. And by the way, we'll open up phone lines 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. It's any kind of reaction you have to Washington's schedule. Whatever it is, phone lines are open. We'll take calls. Do you like the way it was laid out? Do you hate certain stretches? Whatever it is. So, number one, let me just say this because it is something that I've said every single year for the last 15, 16, 17 years, probably longer than that. The schedule and trying to predict what that schedule will be months in advance is a dangerous game. You cannot, with the NFL being such a dynamic, ever-changing, year-to-year, but really more week-to-week league, it's not about who you're playing. It's about when you're playing them. Every year we make this mistake. You go into a season and you're like, win, loss, win, can't win that game. I mean, it's that team. And then you get to that game and that team's having a terrible season and their quarterback got injured. You just never know. You've got a better chance of kind of looking at the early portion of the schedule and guessing what team you might be facing, because your best opportunity to be relatively healthy and not have the wear and tear of a season that's been played, even to, a 6 or 7 game stretch, the effect may not be as great. But even that is a dangerous game because teams just aren't the same. I think one of the things to look at when you look at your opponents is quarterback. How many great quarterbacks are you going to be facing? And the likelihood is before the season begins, you'll probably end up facing that quarterback because quarterbacks do get injured. They do, but at less of a rate than, say, offensive linemen or other position, other position groups. So, looking at the start of the schedule, it's at Philly, at Dallas, Seattle at home. That looks daunting on paper, but I'll tell you what, I kind of like it. I like it from this perspective. First of all, week one is always, every year in the NFL, it is a major head fake. It is fool's gold. Teams are basically playing their players for the first time because they haven't played in the preseason. They haven't hit anybody since the season ended the year before. And every year in week one, we get, football that doesn't resemble from teams what we'll get in week two and week three and moving forward. So I'd much rather play that game at Philly, the division favorite, in week one, when it is a typical crapshoot in the NFL in week one. Yeah, they have Vic Fangio and a nasty defense on paper, for sure, and that will be the known going into that game. But they also have a brand new offensive coordinator in Sean Mannion, and they won't have A.J. Brown more likely than not. I like that opener. I mocked the opener correctly. I got 2 right in my mock schedule. I got a couple of other things that were close to right. I predicted they'd play San Francisco in primetime. I predicted that they'd play the Giants on Thursday Night Football in the Meadowlands. But 2 right is about average for me. That's like hitting 200. So it wasn't a great year. I've had a couple of years where I've hit 400. That's a great year, where I've gotten 4 correct. By the way, not 4 out of 10, so it's not really hitting 4 out of 100, 4 out of 17, so it's less from a batting average perspective. But I'll keep the analogy. Seattle, Dallas in week 2. I mean, they got a whole new defense. They're going to be feeling it out. They'll be coming off a Sunday night road game against the Giants. I mean, why not? I mean, get 2 road games out of the way early when teams are still trying to figure it out. You're not facing Philadelphia when there's a chance Philadelphia could be a great team. You're catching them in a moment. Look, Dallas almost beat Philly, remember, in the season opener last year. It was about as good as Dallas looked all year long on both sides of the ball. That kickoff game at Philly. I like it. Then Seattle at home. I mentioned this yesterday. I love the fact that the 2 West Coast teams that they have, Washington has on its home schedule, are playing 1 o'clock games here rather than a late afternoon game or a primetime game. This is for bettors, this is always gold. Taking that East Coast team in a 1 o'clock game with the points, laying the points, whatever the points are, ATS-wise, it's worked out over the years. Now, outright, it doesn't, it's kind of split the results, but you'd much rather play a West Coast team coming east at 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, than giving them a chance to really acclimate to the time and play later in the day or at night. So I love the fact that they get Seattle and the Rams at home in 1 o'clock games. But that start on paper, Philly, Dallas, Seattle, 2 road games, and then the defending champions coming into town. It looks pretty daunting. But we've known what the opponents were. They were going to get laid out in some, way, shape, or fashion. I don't mind catching Philly or trying to play Philly on the road in week 1. I like that. That's a big spot, man. That's a big opener. It's big in the division. And again, week 1, always a head fake, always fool's gold. You really can't take week 1 and extrapolate it out for any true meaning. You can find examples where teams, plastered somebody in week 1 and they ended up being great. But for the most part, you don't get that. Look at New England last year. They lost to the Raiders at home in the season opener in 25. They ended up going to the Super Bowl. That's the kind of thing that you get in week 1. The Raiders were terrible, and the Patriots, one team won 14 games, and the other team lost 14 games after that. So give me that. Give me Philly in the opener. I mentioned that about the schedule. I like the 2 West Coast teams that they have on their home schedule for 1 o'clock games. I love that. Look, on paper, the toughest stretch would appear to be, 49ers on the road on Monday Night Football, bye week, Philly at home, Rams at home. That looks pretty daunting, but who knows what it'll look like when you get there. And who knows? For those teams, they may be looking at it like, damn, I wish we caught Washington earlier if they're the Rams or the 49ers. Who knows? But that looks like, a stretch on paper based on projected win totals. The 49ers, the Eagles, and the Rams, there is a bye week there. I'll get to net rest because there's a huge advantage in the Philadelphia game at home in a moment. And then when you get to week 10, the Giants, Bengals, Cardinals, Titans, Texans, Falcons, Vikings, Jags, Cowboys in a season finale. It looks like, on paper, there are opportunities to make some hay. But again, for all we know, Tennessee's going to be great and Houston's going to stink. Minnesota's going to be great and the Bears and the Packers aren't going to be very good. It's just hard with the NFL to really play the win-loss schedule game in May. All right. I was not surprised, as you know, based on my mock, that Washington got the standalone nationally televised games that they got. They got 5 of them, 4 in prime time. Jaden Daniels is still very appealing to the schedule makers, even though Washington was 5-12 last year. They get the London game. They get the 49ers on Monday Night Football, October 19th. There's no bye week coming back from London. I will tell you, I believe this to be true. That is sometimes a team participation with schedule makers. Like if they really emphasize they want their bye week after the international game, the schedule makers will typically work with them on that. I'm guessing that Washington said, no, we're good. Just give us a home game following our international game, and we'll take the bye week, a few weeks later. And we don't want the bye week that early in the season. So the other primetime or just standalone nationally televised at San Francisco Monday Night Football, Philly on Sunday Night Football, the Giants on Thursday Night Football, the Bengals in a Monday, November 23rd game, in Landover on Monday Night Football. And then Washington's last 3 games are all TBD. Now, everybody's season finale is TBD. But Washington is one of just 2 teams, Tampa Bay is the other, that got into the mix of potential Saturday games in Week 16 and in Week 17. Those are determined much later in the season. But in each one of those weeks, there are 4 games scheduled for those weekends that have been allocated as TBD, which means they are possible shifts from Sunday to Saturday in a standalone nationally televised spot. So their games against Minnesota and Jacksonville in weeks 16 and 17 could be Saturday standalone nationally televised games. We won't know that until probably early December. They usually make those decisions about those games in early December, about 2 or 3 weeks out from those games. But Washington, again, one of just 2 teams that have a flex from Sunday to Saturday in week 16 and 17. So that would be games on December 26th, potentially instead of Sunday the 27th, and instead of January 3rd, potentially Saturday, January 2nd. The season finale against the Cowboys is a TBD. Everybody's week 18, their 17th game and final game of the season is a TBD. That schedule for week 18 is always made following week 17 so that they can competitively balance that final week to make sure that there isn't an advantage in the trying to get into playoff position situation. So they could actually play in that week 18 on a Saturday as well. So there is a chance their final 3 games of the season could be 3 standalone nationally televised Saturday games. Everybody has that opportunity in week 18. But of course, in week 18, there's Sunday Night Football, and there's always the flex opportunities as well. If Washington's good, who knows? Maybe they end up having a game against like Houston flex to Sunday night on December 13th. You get into those flex windows of being able to, towards the end of the season, everything is flexible now. Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, I believe, has to have 28 days notice for it to be flexed. I don't think we've seen any Thursday night games flexed, even though the league has the ability to do it. Um, what else did I have here? So the thing that I think you look at and you can, with real substance, discuss is net rest days. This is something we've talked about for the last 4 or 5 seasons, 6 seasons. Warren Sharp started to do this years ago, and it's been proven to be impactful. And Washington has a favorable, very favorable net rest situation based on this schedule. I'll lay it out for you when we come back. And again, phone lines are open for anything schedule related. Your thoughts, what you like about it, what you don't like about it, something you wish you would have seen that you didn't get to see. 301 230 0980. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. So, in summary, before I get to this net rest advantage for Washington based on the way the schedule lays out, um, be careful with schedule, discussions at this point with respect to, oh my God, that's a really hard stretch, or oh my God, that should be the easy stretch, or that's definitely a loss, or that's definitely a win. The league just changes way too much year to year to play that game. And every time you play that game, if you fast forward to the end of the year, it's like, oh, remember that game we thought we had no chance and we won that one. And remember the game we thought we would win easily, we lost that one. The league is just way too unpredictable year to year. But I do like the fact that they're catching that they get to play a game at Philly, the division favorite, in a week one situation where week one is always very much not reflective of what teams are going to be or the rest of the season. You can pull out examples from every season where a team that ended up killing it lost to a bad team in week one. New England last year lost to the Raiders at home in week one. And given that there's a new offensive coordinator and no A.J. Brown, I like that spot. I have no issue with that. And then going to Dallas and getting 2 division games on the road early, I kind of like the opportunity. Seattle at home week 3. I've mentioned the 2 West Coast teams coming east for 1:00 kicks is advantage home team in those spots. So that's good that the Seattle and Rams games are both 1:00 games rather than 4:25 or primetime games. I can look at the schedule and say, wow, that stretch with San Francisco, Philly, and the Rams in order, it certainly would look it looks daunting. And, having Arizona, Tennessee, Atlanta, Minnesota, and, a 4 out of 5 situation, it looks enticing. It looks like, who knows? I like that Washington is still viewed as kind of an appealing team, and the number of standalone national television spots reflect that. They've got 5 of them, and they've got 3 straight TBDs, but everybody's got a week 18 TBD. But they're one of just 2 teams that could be flexed from Sunday to Saturday in weeks 16 and 17. Tampa Bay is the other one. So their Minnesota game could be Saturday, December 26th instead of Sunday. Their Jacksonville game could be Saturday, January 2nd instead of January 3rd. Those are spots in which they're looking at them and saying that could be an appealing matchup. Let's put that to the side with a few other games as potentially flexible to Saturday. And that gets me to net rest. So Warren Sharp, who we've had on the show many times, he started to do this thing called net rest advantage or disadvantage, where he realized that teams that had less days to prepare in aggregate over the course of the season for their opponents had more rest than they did going into a game, they tend to perform worse than the teams that have more health, more time to prepare. So an example would be a team that is playing another team on a Sunday afternoon at 1:00. If that team's previous game was on a Sunday, but their opponent's game was Monday night, that's a 1-day rest advantage. The team that played Monday night is in a short week situation against a team that played on Sunday, so it's a +1 in the advantage. And there are situations where if you play on a Thursday night and you're playing a team that played on Sunday, well, that's a +3 day advantage. Washington has one of those huge advantages, which I'll get to here in a moment. But last year, just to give you an idea, all right, the 5 worst overall net rest day disadvantages were the Raiders at -19 days, the Saints at -14 days. Washington had the 3rd worst net rest situation last year at -13 days. Buffalo was at -7 and Cleveland was at -7. Those were the 5 worst last year in terms of disadvantages when it came to rest in their games over a season. Those teams, those 5 teams, went 31 and 54. The teams with the 5 best net rest situations were Detroit at plus 13 days, Miami at plus 11 days, then the Rams at plus 10, the 49ers at plus 9, and the Seahawks at plus 8. Those 5 teams went 54 and 31. So the 5 best situations won 64% of its games, rounded up, and the 5 worst situations won just 36% of its games. So, with that in mind, what is Washington's situation in terms of net rest days? I did not do the rest of the league. I'll wait for Warren Sharp to come out with his complete study and all of the data for who's got the best. But I'm going to guess right now that Washington's going to be close to top 5 in terms of net rest advantage situations. Now, there are only 3 games on their schedule that are impacted by rest day differences. The other 14 games, everybody's got the same number of days leading into the game. So it's Sunday to Sunday in almost all of those circumstances. But here's the biggest net rest advantage for Washington. After they go to San Francisco, they get their bye week in week 7. Their next game comes Sunday night, November 1st, against Philadelphia. So Washington, because they played on Monday night, they have 13 days in between games. The Eagles are coming into that Sunday night game, November 1st, off of a Monday night game against the Cowboys. So they have 6 days, short week, and Washington's off a bye week. Now, it is a 1 less day bye week situation because they didn't play on a Sunday. They played on a Monday night in San Francisco. But that is a plus 7-day advantage for Washington. So the 2 Philly games this year, you get them in the opener when the league hasn't figured out anything. And I like that, playing at Philly in the opener. And the next time you get them, Sunday Night Football, November 1st, Philly's coming into the game off a Monday night game, and you're coming off your bye week. Advantage, Washington. The other 2 games that there are differences, they play the Bengals on Monday night, November 23rd, off of playing the previous week on a Thursday night in the Meadowlands against the Giants. The Bengals played Sunday, so they're going Sunday to Monday night. Washington's going the previous Thursday to Monday night. That is a plus 3-day advantage for Washington. And then they only have 1 week, and it may be the toughest week given the fact of the short turnaround, but they have a -1 rest day disadvantage in this circumstance. The following week, November 29th, Thanksgiving weekend, when they go to Arizona off a Monday night game, and Arizona played the previous Sunday. So they are -1 on that situation. And let's face it, you're going Monday Night Football, then out west to play Arizona. So that's sometimes a tricky spot there. But overall, the Philly advantage, the Bengals advantage, the Cardinals 1-day disadvantage, Washington will have a +9 net rest advantage based on their schedule in 2026. Last year, as I mentioned, they had a -13 net rest disadvantage. The top 5 teams in the league that had the best situations went 54 and 31. The bottom 5 teams in the league last year, as it relates to net rest, went 31 and 54. So there is something to this, and Washington's situation is a good situation based on the way the schedule lays out. And I would just add to that once again, they also benefit from the 2 West Coast teams that they have on their home schedule coming here to play 1 o'clock early Sunday starts. So overall, from all of these different things I've mentioned, I think they got a pretty good layout of the schedule. Of course, it all comes down to, what does your team look like and what does the opponent look like on the day that you play each other? It's not who you play, it's when you play them. And for them, it's the same thing. It's not who they're playing in your team, but it's when you're playing that team. There are some, when you're playing these teams based on net rest and time differences, that should work in Washington's favor, but it wouldn't work in their favor if they're putting Marcus Mariota and Robbie Chosen and Chris Moore out on the field for those games. No net rest advantage is going to help you in that situation. All right, 301-230-0980. Anything on the schedule? Let's go to Fuad. Fuad, go ahead.
Kevin, good morning. How's it going?
It's going well, Fuad. How are you?
I think you good. I like the fact that we have 3 divisional games early. It kind of gives us a chance to, even if they don't go our way, let's say we go 1-2 in those 3 games, we still have time to make it up towards the end of the year. I know from weeks 1 to 10 is probably the toughest stretch, but you go into there, you come out of there at least 500 or maybe one game under 500, you still have a good chance to put some wins together and make a playoff push. But I will say, with Jaden Daniels healthy, from this point moving on, I feel like we're going to be a double-digit win team. You could just, if the over-under is 9.5 every season, from this point on, just take the over.
Well, it's
Daniels
not. It's 7.5.
And able to play.
Their over-under is 7.5.
No, I understand. I'm saying from 27 and onwards. I'm saying I have that much faith in Jaden.
Oh, okay.
Will be good. And I know you said we don't have a bye after the London game, right?
Yeah.
Well, having the Giants at home is as good as a bye. I'm not really worried about the Giants.
All right. Well, let's hope you're right. But there's a good chance you may not be right because it's really hard to predict. I'll tell you what, there are a lot of people. Like I was watching some of the schedule coverage last night on ESPN. There are a lot of people that are really high on the Giants, man. Really high on the Giants. The Giants got one of those starts. It's like they're playing 2 primetime games to start the season against the Cowboys and the Rams. But they get the Rams coming back from Australia, but they played the previous Thursday. Fuad, thanks for the call. Let's go to Joe in Springfield. Joe, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, what's going on?
What's up, Joe?
So looking at the schedule, I mean, this is kind of, I think the first time I did my research since 2020 where we're having that late stretch of season where we're not playing divisional opponents like 3 of the last 4 games.
Right.
Right.
It's been a lot of that in recent years. Yeah. Dallas is it. I mean, I'm looking at, the last division game before the finale is November 12th against the Giants. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the one thing about the schedule that I'm a little not sure about is weeks 13 to 18, and I'll explain why. 3 of those last 6 games are AFC opponents. Now, if you want to play the AFC opponents early in the season, because late in the season, if you're trying to make a playoff push, you're trying to play NFC opponents for standings purposes, that makes more sense. Playing the AFC opponents like from December to like January, I mean, again, who knows where we are by the season because the NFL is full of surprises, but I do agree. Weeks 1 and 2, that's the chance to show what we can do because who knows what Philadelphia's going to do. They're making some changes. We made some changes too. Week 1 is full of surprises, Kevin. I mean, look what happened.
Week 1's always full of surprises.
Jaden played okay, and then next week we got injured, so who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, the AFC thing, look, it can work in your favor too. Like if you've got an advantage there, from a tiebreaker standpoint, losing to AFC teams is less damaging late in the season than it is to NFC teams and having those head-to-head. But you're right. You actually pointed it out. I should have said this, but for the first time in many years, like Washington's division games are basically in the books midway through the season. Week 10, they play the Giants. Now, everybody finishes with a division opponent. That's the way the league's been set up now for 11, 12, 13, 14 years, something like that. But they get 5 out of their 6 division games by week 10. So they've got that stretch, like you said, of Cincinnati, Arizona, Tennessee, Houston, Atlanta, Minnesota, Jacksonville. 4 of their 5 AFC games come after week 10 before they finish with Dallas. Let's go to Lap. Lap, go ahead.
Hey, what's up, Kevin?
What's up, Lap?
Schedule's not too bad. It's a tough schedule. I just want to see where we stack up. Glad we got those division games earlier. It's crazy we playing the Falcons 3 straight years. It would have been nice to at least give us the Saints or something. That would have been nice.
Well, we knew the opponents before
right.
the schedule was laid out yesterday, Lap. We've known that since the end of the season.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but we'll see, man. I'm excited. I'm just hoping Jaden is healthy because I was telling you before a while that, he didn't look the same. You know what I'm saying? I know he looked better in that Bears in that Chargers game, but just overall, like, he just didn't look the same. So hopefully he get the ball out quicker. And Kevin,
Well, hopefully he can play next year. Hopefully he plays football, a lot more
definitely.
football next year. That'd be nice. We can start with that.
Yeah.
We can talk about his performances in the 4 games that he played start to finish if you want. I'd much rather just start with the obvious headline, which is we need him to play football next year. And then we got a shot. We should be a better team if he plays a lot of football next year. He didn't play much football in 2025.
That Brandon Ayuk or Debo on the team for that San Francisco Monday night. That would be crazy.
Yeah, good point. Like, going back to San Francisco with that, with Ayuk in a Monday night game. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about just Ayuk week 1 with 2 touchdowns against Philadelphia, and he's and A.J. Brown's not there to counter. Let's go to Billy in Chantilly. Billy, go ahead. What do you think about the schedule?
I appreciate you taking it. My first comment would be on you kind of kicked off the show, the competition between the NCAA football and the NFL.
I hate that.
I perceive the NFL views college football because the players now receive the NIL money as competition. I don't think they think of them as a feeder league.
Well, it is a feeder league.
Well,
where else do they get their players?
They're also all getting paid.
Well, so what? It is a feeder league. It's the only place that the NFL gets its players, except for the international program. Yeah, I mean, I just think, look, in the best interest of, there is the conversation about, will there be a tipping point for the NFL? They're playing now on basically every day of the week except Tuesday this year. They've added a game on Thanksgiving Eve. They've added all these standalones, which, by the way, reduces the number of games on Sundays. Is there a tipping point? My personal view is there isn't. Even when they go to 18 games, I just think we love it so much, and it's such a part of the fabric of our scheduled lives during that time of year. I don't think there will ever be enough is enough. But I do think that when, possible, they should not trample on what is one of the biggest days in college football now. That first round home sites triple header. I understand why they've done it a couple of times. They did it the first time because they were playing Christmas Day on a Wednesday, but they didn't have to do it this year, and they did it anyway. I don't like that. I'm a big college football fan, as you know, and I love that day, and I don't want to have to choose. I mean, I won't choose. I'll have multiple screens going, but I don't think the NFL they don't need to do that. I'm going to have somebody on from the schedule-making team at some point, and that's going to be a question that I ask. What else you got on the schedule, Billy? All right. Ian wants to weigh in. Ian, go ahead.
Yeah. So what's the final audit for you? You got 3 out of 17, right? Is that correct?
No, 2 out of 17. Not bad. Pretty much my average.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. No, I like the schedule in that I think it's fun having division matchups early. And I think it's the net rest stuff. Sure, I heard your calculation there, but you can also ask, were they good teams to begin with? Who were their quarterbacks? So I think net rest obviously is somewhat of an advantage, but I don't think it's the ultimate advantage, if you will. But I think the biggest takeaway I have is seeing kind of the disconnect of the over-under, which is 7.5 still, and then ESPN's analytics said they would win 6.9 or whatever, versus the schedule makers putting Washington on 5 standalone plus the late games, which
right.
Mike North was saying to the Junkies, hey, they actually draw the most numbers. So you're seeing a disconnect where some people are like, no, this is going to be a good team. Jaden Daniels is still a superstar. We believe in kind of the turnaround, new coordinators, blah, 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 versus kind of the betting and the analysis side saying this team's not that good. And I'm going to sway with the betting and analysis side. I just don't see better than 8 and 9.
It's not analysis. It's the odds
know.
maker side, right? I mean, it's
Sure.
if you're talking about like sort of NFL analysts, that's different than the boys in the desert. You know how I feel. I feel like the boys in the desert
Sure.
usually have a grasp of this
Of course.
too. And I think the 7.5 number is interesting. Now, the price on playing over is super expensive, which tells you that they're leaning on moving that number up between now and the beginning of the season if they were to move it at all versus moving it down. It won't move down to 6.5. You know, if anything, we could see a jump up. But yeah, so your point, I mean, that has nothing to do with the schedule other than your point is, why are the schedule makers so detached from Vegas? Well, really, the schedule makers, especially early in the season, are looking for the highest opportunity for viewers. And Jaden Daniels is appealing. He's appealing.
Yes. No. I'm not saying they're detached from it. I was just saying the kind of view of Washington by the schedule makers is that, right, that this is a team that is exciting, and Jaden Daniels is very exciting. And I didn't expect that. When you had projected 5 standalone games, I was like, no way, maybe 2 or maybe 3. But you were right. It's definitely, they're still considered a marquee team.
Not to mention 2 425 games early in the season that will probably go to the majority of the country in terms of Philadelphia and certainly in week 2 against Dallas. Which is, totally not a given either, because we played those teams many times at 1:00 on a Sunday. So yeah, and then as you mentioned, and it's true, like the Washington has 2 flex opportunities right now to be in standalone spots in week 16 and week 17. So they could end up legitimately on national TV standalone spots as much as anybody by the end of the year. Now, I don't think they'll catch the Rams. I don't think they're going to catch the Packers or the Chiefs or the Bills. But they got a lot compared to their record last year, no doubt.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised at the Packers. And on a side note, I don't think it's a good look for the NFL to not give every team at least one standalone game. Like, I was surprised the Raiders didn't get a standalone
with Mendoza,
game.
right?
That surprised me.
I was expecting that too. I was surprised at that too. I should have mentioned that, because typically the number 1 pick in the draft, when it's a quarterback, that team will be featured a few times, even though they were terrible the year before. And the Raiders got none. Arizona got none. But it just goes to show you, man, the NFL is a television show, and it's the number 1 live television product in America by far. Nothing's close. And so they're trying to put out the best possible TV show. But yes, now part of that, I'm going to tell you right now, part of that is Brady and Kubiak, who have both said they don't want to play Mendoza in his rookie year, which is why they went out and got Cousins. And that's just their belief that rookie quarterbacks should not play. They should sit and watch. So maybe that was part of the calculus there. All right. Thanks, Ian. Appreciate it. As always, if you want to weigh in, I mean, I know what everybody does on a day like today. I hate doing this. I hate doing it. It's so dumb. But if you want me to do it, I can do it. And that is, now that it's in front of you, play the win-loss game. What's their record? 301-230-0980. I hesitate every year. I'm like, I don't want to do this. I know what it's the worst game to play, because you really don't have a clue as to what these games will look like by the time you get there. Early in the season, there's more confidence. What kind of quarterbacks are you playing? There's a little bit of confidence. The net rest stuff is legit. The West Coast to East, it's legit. But what are you really getting when you actually get to these games? It's a dynamic, ever-changing, week-to-week league. And let alone the number of teams that sucked last year that will end up being good this year. And you don't know which ones those will be. You just don't know. It happens every year. A couple of those teams that you're convinced absolutely stink are going to be playoff teams. I mean, if you had New England on your schedule, it was a win last year. It was 100% a win. We just see that every year, and you just don't know which teams those teams are going to be. But we can play the game. 301-230-0980. Now that it's laid out in front of you, what's your first blush 2026 final record? I will play the game, although I've always had a number in mind even before the schedule came out. So I'll stick with that one. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com. All right, schedule's out. We know what it looks like. I think the best trip, if like you were going to make a trip to a road game, it'd be London, or it'd be San Francisco for a Monday nighter. Although, if you're staying in San Francisco, it's a hike to Santa Clara. Yeah, Minnesota the day after Christmas potentially, if that game were a Saturday game, be very festive and probably damn cold. Don't like that trip. That would be the one trip. London.
January 2nd to Jacksonville? That might be a little
Ooh,
yeah.
Kind of like that. Although Jacksonville's just far enough north where it can
might be
get chilly in
chilly.
Jacksonville. It's not always perfect. It's like South Carolina. South Carolina's great. Charleston's unbelievable.
Beautiful.
Kiowa, all those places. But it can get cold in the wintertime.
Can.
All right, 301-230-0980. I will play the game, the schedule game and the final record prediction game. Let me just tell you that I have thought since the end of last season that you just can't possibly have a season like they had last year when it comes to injuries. And so as long as that doesn't happen and Jaden plays, the significant majority, or all 17 games, it's going to be a massive improvement in the football team in 2026. They have focused on defensively swapping out many players with, on paper, younger, faster, and even better. There is an unknown in the defensive coordinator, but could the defense be worse than it was last year? That'd be pretty difficult. I said that about 2024, like the defense can't be worse than it was in 2024, and it was. It was pretty horrific. But I'm going to, take a leap of faith that they are improved defensively. Maybe it doesn't show early in the year, but ultimately it will be a better defense. Can't be worse talent-wise, can't be worse from a scheme or coaching standpoint. And if Jaden plays, this team's just going to be better, much better. I'd like one more playmaker offensively, but if you told me today they didn't get one, what's more important is that number 5 plays 17 games healthy. That's the most important thing for the team. As I've said many times before, and I'm so shocked sometimes, even some of my guests who cover the league just kind of gloss over it. But when teams don't have their best player at the quarterback position play in most of its games, your season 95% of the time is doomed. And Washington had that situation last year. Then throw on top of it, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, running back 1, guard 1, corner 1, pass rusher 1, edge setting run defender 1. I mean, you can't possibly overcome that. Is that going to happen 2 years in a row? Not likely. It is an outlier what happened to them last year. The most important, though, is number 5. If number 5 plays, and he plays the majority of the games, and he doesn't have a bunch of guys off the street playing around him, they're going to be much better. I like them to win more games than they lose next year. I do. And in terms of net rest advantage and West Coast teams coming east for 1 o'clock games, I kind of like the way from that perspective, not the opponent perspective, because, again, hard to know what that team will look like when you get to that game. But I like 10 wins. I predicted that 2 years ago. They exceeded it. I predicted a lot more than that last year, 12 wins, and they flipped it the other way with 5. I am not going to sit here and say which games they're going to win and which games they're not going to win. But I do like, as I said about the schedule reveal, I do like playing Philadelphia on the road in week 1. To me, week 1's always a feel-out week. Players haven't played football, actually, where they're tackling each other for 4 quarters since the last time they played in the previous year. It's always a head fake week 1. There's always a lot of unpredictable stuff in week 1. I love the opportunity to go in there in week 1 and play the division favorite in week 1. I don't mind going to Dallas in week 2 and trying to catch them early as well, because they're the second favorite in the division heading into the season. Getting Seattle, coming east for a 1 o'clock game after, They opened up now. Their opening is the Patriots at home on Wednesday night, September 9th, and then they play at Arizona in week 2. But is Sam Darnold going to be as good next year as he was this past year? I'm still not like totally sold on Sam Darnold. The Colts in London, the Giants at home coming back, 10-7. But it's not a 10-7 where I'm going to tick off the games and tell you which are the 7 losses and which are the 10 wins. It's too hard to do. 10-7 though. There's no way they're going to be without their best players for, an average of 11 to 12 games of 17. And that's what it was last year. No team in recent history has had their frontline starters miss more games than Washington had in 2025. Teams have been more injured in total man games lost, but not with their day one starters. All right. Post-schedule reveal, 2026 final record prediction time, 301-230-098. He will start with Mark in Largo. Mark might be.
I got them at 13-4. Maybe
you got them at 13-4.
And here's the reason why.
Yep.
I think they're going to beat Philadelphia and Dallas. I think the minute Philadelphia trades A.J. Brown, that's 3 to 4 wins right there. That's going to hurt Jalen Hurts more than anything. I'm not buying Dallas' front 7. I buy the secondary. Caleb Downs may be the truth. He ain't Sean Taylor. He ain't in Baltimore.
Right.
I think they'll win those 2 games. They're going to lose to Seattle. I got them losing to the Rams. I got them losing to the Texans and the Jaguars, and maybe Dallas at the last game of the season to go 12-5. But they'll have the division. They'll probably be a 2nd seed or 3rd seed. They'll go to the NFC Championship in L.A. against the Rams, which will be a home game for Jaden Daniels, just like last year.
It'll just be a home game for our team.
Yeah, it'll be a home game for our team because we'll win it out there. I just don't, but I just don't feel. I think, Kevin, let me say this. Yeah. I think our defense is going to be the fastest defense in the NFL.
The fastest defense
I'm
in the NFL.
In that.
Wow.
Huh?
I'm just trying to think. Who are the fastest defenses in the NFL? Houston's pretty fast. Philly's pretty fast. 49ers healthy or fast.
Right. Minnesota definitely. But I just think they're.
I think Minnesota less fast and more just sort of scheme, savvy overall.
I could buy that. We haven't had a fast team in a long time. Mm-hmm. The fastest team I've seen was Dallas, and this is, I think, on both sides of the ball, Washington's going to be fast, and that is definitely going to catch Philadelphia and Dallas off guard. And
I hope you're right. I mean, they've certainly gotten faster with their additions on defense. There's no doubt, and let's see how it all comes together. It's a lot of guys that haven't played together with a new coordinator who's never been a coordinator.
Amen. But I'm just, and here's the other thing too, Kevin.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm not buying Jackson, the kid up in New York. I'm not buying him.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody thinks he's the next big thing in Jackson Dart. I'm just not buying him. And the other thing, you know what? I'm not buying John Harbaugh either. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of people talk about how great his record is and all this. Let's remember now, in the last 5 years, no team has lost more games having double-digit leads than the Baltimore Ravens. No one wants to talk about that guy.
Is that true? I didn't know that.
I mean, think about it.
Is that true? Sometimes you just throw stuff out there. I've noticed that about you, and people go and they look it up and they say Mark in Largo was smoking again before he called in. Give me that stat again that you claim to be factual.
In the last few years, no one has lost more.
Few years? How many years?
Huh?
How many years?
Well, let's say 3 years, 3 or 4 years.
So this isn't a real stat. You're just winging it here.
No, I'm not winging it.
Well, then how many years? Where did you read this stat? How many years was it? It wasn't just the last few years.
But hold up, Kevin. When they lost to Buffalo last year, I remember somebody saying when they lost to them in the playoffs, Someone said on the air, no one has lost more games in the last few years than the Baltimore
So we're going
Ravens.
back to the 2024 playoffs, and somebody said on the air.
We're going back to
Okay.
22 or 23.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking through, like, in 2024, they lost that, a playoff game when Andrews
game.
dropped the 2-point conversion for overtime. They lost to Kansas City right at the gun. Remember, Likely had that
Right.
touchdown catch but didn't get the feed in.
Right.
Lost to Vegas by 3, lost to Cleveland by 5, lost to Pittsburgh by 2, lost to Philly by 5. Yeah, some close losses in 24.
See, that's my point. That's my
Well,
point.
I don't know what your point was. Your point the point you tried to make was there was an actual stat out there that the Ravens have lost more close games, but you just went with over a few years and you heard it in a playoff game from 2 years ago. So unofficially, the Ravens have lost a lot of close games compared to the rest of the league. We'll leave it at that. Is that fair?
Under John Harbaugh.
Under John, well, the last few years, right. They haven't played their
John
first
Harbaugh.
game with Jesse Minter yet.
There you go. But see, no one's talking about that. No one's talking about
Well,
that.
you are.
That's not-
And you've introduced it into the conversation about the Ravens. Robert in Annapolis, I'm sure, will weigh in on this at some point. Thank you, Mark in Largo. Let's go to G from the shop. Go ahead. Record prediction now that we've seen the schedule laid out.
Well, I'm optimistic every time. Like, it's the only time you can be optimistic. I say 12-5 every year because 12 wins is a good season for any NFL team. So I say that every year, and I say we're going down Pennsylvania Avenue for a parade every year, Sheehan. So you know that. But I love what y'all do with the sports radio. But the last 2 months is definitely my least favorite to listen to because you got the NFL. You got the NFL draft, and everybody calls in like they Bobby Bessett being a
Right.
GM, man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I gotta hear Sheehan. I gotta hear Sheehan try to convince all his listeners to put aside their hate for the NBA because the NBA playoffs are fantastic. And then you
like them. You agree with me on that.
No. But I'm just saying it's predictable. These 2 months, man. You know what I'm saying?
Well, how about the next 3? How about the next 3?
No,
I mean, when we start talking about the backup, nose tackle for a whole show.
I'm going to get there, Sheehan, because you get the schedule leaks and release. The schedule means nothing. That's something that you can't control. And then you got people complaining about it. Schedule is what it's going to be. My father taught me in playing boys club, you play whoever shows up. You play whoever on the schedule, man. You know what I'm saying? Just win the game. I know for a fact, like you said, the NFL got this world wallet in a chokehold, Kevin. They headline everything in season, combine, draft, schedule, release, training camp, like you just said. Unlike any sport ever, the NFL is unbeatable. COVID couldn't even defeat the NFL.
No, actually, COVID helped it. I was talking to Tommy about this yesterday on my podcast. It's actually kind of an interesting conversation, and I know it's not a new conversation, but is there a tipping point? Is there a saturation point? Is there a point where the NFL goes too far and it starts to push people away? I honestly don't see it. I mean, one of the greatest ideas in recent memory for any sport was to hold the draft in a city and invite fans to attend it. Whoever came up with that idea in the league office should have been elevated to a status and a compensation package that should never be touched. That was brilliant. The schedule release, that started 15 years ago or so. I remember Andy and I did an actual show. We came in at night and we did a whole show on the schedule release. This thing is now its own little entity. I mean, I don't know what else they could do. Tommy's like, what else could they do that they haven't done? And I said, if I had that answer, I'd be in the league office. Because I think they've touched everything. And this schedule, G, reveals that they are unafraid to play on any night. We're now getting football next year on every single night of the week with the exception of Tuesday. And with an 18-game schedule, that's coming somewhere down the road.
Yeah. No, saturation, they can't oversaturate it. They control everything. And like you said, with the city-to-city draft, not only that, look at the stats on how many people watched the COVID draft with all the youngins in the living room. We
Right.
needed that when it was
Yeah.
shut down. I heard y'all a couple weeks ago do a whole week every show on the uniform release. There is no oversaturation.
Well,
They're
that's
unbeatable
different. That's
product.
specific to our
No,
fan base and the
listen,
hatred of the name and the whole thing.
they are
Yeah.
unbeatable product, man. They cannot.
It really
they're
is.
undefeated, man.
It is a topic that I'm going to do soon because thanks for the call as always, G. By the way, is he still there? Okay, sorry. I was going to see if he, like me, believes Detroit wins at Cleveland tonight to force Game 7. Because that's what I'm really into. Games, important games, playoff games that are being played right now in sports. But this Thanksgiving Eve introduction, the Black Friday game introduction 2 years ago. I mean, Thanksgiving now has 5 standalone games before we get to the NFL Sunday that weekend. 5. A Wednesday night Thanksgiving Eve game. By the way, that's Packers and Rams at SoFi. The 3 games on Thanksgiving Day, triple header. By the way, these games on paper right now look phenomenal. Green Bay Rams. I mean, you're taking 4 incredible NFL matchups, 5 of them standalone. Green Bay at SoFi against the Rams on Wednesday night, November 25th, the night before Thanksgiving. The 3 games on Thanksgiving Day, Chicago at Detroit, Philly at Dallas, KC at Buffalo, which has been one of the premier protect games every year. They're putting that game on Thanksgiving night on NBC. And then the Black Friday game, Denver at Pittsburgh. And now we're getting, in the holiday ratings are through the roof. We talked to Mike North about that last year. These holiday ratings are just through the roof when people are at home, when the weather turns colder and worse. And now we're getting a Christmas Eve night game. Now that's Thursday night football. So, but then on Friday, Christmas Day, not 2 games on Netflix. We get 2 games on Netflix and a 3rd game on Fox, a triple header now. Then we'll have games on Saturday. Probably a doubleheader or a triple header on that Saturday. What it does do, it reduces the inventory on Sundays, where you get, right now you might only have 4 or 5 1:00 games Christmas weekend on Sunday and 2 4:00 games, and then a Sunday night game and a Monday night game. Is there a point? I wonder. I can't see it, man. There's something about the comfort and the rhythm of the scheduled part of the year for everybody. People are back to school. They're back to work. And then the holiday routine. And football, even as background noise for so many households, is a tradition. It's comfort food. Let's go to Aveen. Aveen, go ahead. You've seen the schedule. How many wins?
Hey, Kevin. First off, I want to say thank you for going straight to the source a couple days ago with Mike Giannetti and clearing up that IU.
Oh, yeah. You heard that. Good, yeah.
Yeah,
so it is 27 million.
Online.
It's 27 million because the $25 million option comes on September 1st.
Right. So it does make sense why nobody wants to trade for him.
Yeah.
So that was cleared up.
No, I appreciate
Kevin,
you bringing it to my attention because it did look different when it was laid out on Spot Track. He said he didn't remember it changing, and I said, I'm pretty sure it did. I think most of it was in base salary the last time I checked. But anyway, thanks. Go ahead. What do you got?
I mean, yeah. All that stuff looks foreign to me. Like, it's very hard to understand. But But Kevin, I'm going with 11 wins. I'm gonna keep going double-digit wins until Jaden Daniels gives us some more negative information to change our mind on. But Kevin, I feel like we've been a deeply misunderstood team since Jaden has been here, and the way people are talking about Jaden Daniels, I feel like me and you are on a different planet compared to everybody else. Where everybody is talking about Jaden Daniels like, well, he's talented, but we're not really sure how good he is. He regressed last year, all that kind of stuff, and it's crazy because it's like, again, he was unhealthy the whole year last year, and he's not being given the grace that other quarterbacks get given. So to me, Jaden Daniels is an elite caliber quarterback. What does that mean? If he's healthy, if the team around him isn't decimated, he elevates that group and he makes it really hard to get off the field. He is able to will his team to win. And I'm just looking at the schedule again, and I'm like, we're the ones with the quarterback advantage in almost every game we play. And it's just a different thing when you have that caliber of quarterback. So I just feel like I'm on a different planet than
it's
how
recency
people talk about
bias.
Washington.
It's out of sight, out of mind. It's, super reactionary. That's the world we're living in sports now. Not just sports, but basically everything. It's whatever you just saw, that's what it is. And my problem, as you know, with the conversation around Jaden is people act like they saw something. No, what they saw was somebody else playing quarterback for much of the season. And so that's the one frustration I have with, the people that on the outside, especially, that just say, yeah, he had a terrible, sophomore season. What? He didn't play. He played in 4 games. Start to finish, 7 total out of 17. And when he did play, he barely had anything around him. So you and I are on the same page. He's an elite level talent. I don't see, many games in which I don't feel like they'll have the best quarterback on the field. Look, with Stafford, Burrow, looking through the schedule, Trevor Lawrence. I'm more of a Lawrence fan than a lot of people. Dak, but in most cases this year, if he's out there healthy, they'll have the best quarterback. And we know what that means in this particular sport and this league more times than not.
Yeah, and it's why you've said, like, over the years, like, if you just hit on the quarterback, they almost always consistently give you wins. They turn out wins for you if you just don't mess everything else up completely around him.
Yeah, you've got a better chance with the right quarterback of winning more games than you lose more consistently over a period of time than by having elite level at another position. I think that's pretty obvious to anybody that's followed this sport. And you and I both think that's what he is. We didn't see regression last year because we didn't get to see him play enough last year. But people have that opinion. I think it's a stupid opinion, but it's an opinion. And we'll see what happens. Because, look, the one thing, Aveen, that does worry me, and it's the one thing, as you know, that I said before the draft in 24, his frame does look like one of those frames that you got to be a little bit careful with when you get to the NFL. And last year we saw it sort of, come to fruition that he got injured a bunch. Now, there's no history of him with injury issues. Last year was the aberration for him in his football playing career, college, and the 1 year in the NFL prior to that. But that's the one thing, like, if somebody said, I'm concerned about whether or not he can hold up with the way he plays football, the way they want him to play football, and they'll steer a little bit away from, a lot of the dual threat stuff, I would imagine. But still, ultimately, you would never want them to take that away from him. It's one of his superpowers, as Quinn says. And so if somebody said, that's my concern, I can't really knock that as a concern. I can only hit you with facts, which is last year was the aberration. It wasn't the norm. Now, is it going to be a trend? We don't know. But it's not the craziest take to look at him and look at last year and be concerned.
Yeah.
Anyway, what else you got?
You got to think this offseason, they've really, just looked at it hard, both Jaden and the team. Like, what happened to his body? Like, what are we going to do this season to prevent that? What ways does he need to train? Stuff like that.
Right.
But I'll also just say, Kevin, just to end, a bunch of our fans, like a bunch of the beat reporters are like, they all have this narrative that, oh man, this is a brutal schedule to start. And, I don't trust any of these team narratives going into the season. Everybody just buys into them.
You can't.
For the Eagles, the Eagles have the track record and everything. But to me, I know I'm more down on the Eagles every year than everybody else. But the Eagles can't really throw the football. They run a service academy offense. And, Jalen Hurts.
Well, it's not a service academy offense. And with Sean Mannion, it's going to be much more of a Shanahan-style offense.
Which doesn't fit Hurts at all. He's not a quick release, quick processing, let it rip over the middle field quarterback. He He doesn't see it well. He's going to take more.
You
sacks.
and I know we've had this debate
know.
before, and you're
know,
not
yeah.
wrong for the majority of the games that he's played in, but I have seen him do it before. And I've seen him do it when he's had to do it in some big spots. So I have a slightly different view on Jalen Hurts. And for him, I understand the idea of he's probably better as a dual threat quarterback. He's probably better in more shotgun. He's probably better with, every quarterback would be with an elite level running game. But, there was even a game last year. Thanks for the call, Levine. I got to get to a break. But there was even a game last year late in the season when they played the Chargers on like a Monday night, and he was letting it rip. And because he had to. I like Jalen Hurts. I've always liked Jalen Hurts, and I would not bury him yet, especially with, a Shanahan, Kevin O'Connell, Sean McVay style OC and offense coming his way. And I think the one defense of Jalen Hurts in terms of inconsistency or not sure about whatever is he's now on his 9th offensive coordinator in 9 seasons of playing football going back to Alabama. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. Doing a lot of schedule talk today on the show. Later on in the show, something that has been discussed and even reported on out there about the Wizards potentially trading number one. We'll get to that later on next hour. Ben is going to join us at 12. We'll get his thoughts on the schedule. And let me mention that right now, Window Nation is offering their buy four, get four free sale. So that's half price paying on your windows. You get 4 free windows with every 4 purchased. You purchase 8, you purchase, 10, you get the next 10 for free. That's probably not the way the math works. Like if you buy 4, 8, or 12 or 16, you get the next that number for free. But basically, you're going to pay half price for the windows. And if you decide to finance the purchase, no money down, no monthly payments, and no interest charged for 2 years. So you're basically getting the windows for free for 2 years if you decide to move forward with Window Nation. It all starts with an in-home estimate. You get that by scheduling it with them at windownation.com or by calling them at 866-90-NATION. They'll come into your home in an hour or less. They'll leave you with a quote, and then they'll leave you alone. You make the call. But as I've said for many times and for many years, not a better company to work with than Window Nation, rated number one by Forbes magazine among all window installation companies in America. They have over 45,000 five-star reviews on social media, and 96% of their installs require no follow-up service. If you've been thinking about new windows because your windows are older or you just want your home to look nicer, give Window Nation a shot. That's all I ask. Call them at 866-90-NATION or head to windownation.com to get your fast, free in-home estimate. 301-230-0980. The schedule is out. How many wins do you have for Washington in 2026? Before the schedule was laid out, I said I could see them winning 10 games. I think they're going to win more games than they lose. What does worry me is their low over-under number in Vegas, because those guys typically are pretty close to right at 7.5. But I'd probably play the over and lay the heavy price on the over as well, because it's like minus 130 to play the over on Washington's total right now in a lot of spots. But I got 10 wins. Max, you have how many?
I haven't really landed on it yet. I'm really caught up with the first 6 games before the bye week. It's a gauntlet of teams that were really, really good last year and the Giants. But Philly's just going to be opening up with them. America's game of the week, the first 2 weeks, going to be a lot of eyes on this Commanders team nationally. So the narrative could get pretty dicey pretty fast if they start like 1-2, like I expect them to. But I think that we're going to get around 10, 11, maybe even 12 wins, depending on some of these teams and how they shake out down the stretch.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a lot of eyeballs on them. Like, I understand
there will be.
That there will be. They did get a lot of standalone nationally televised games. I thought that was a possibility because Jaden Daniels is appealing.
He's a draw
to the schedule makers. But, I was even watching something early this morning where, they did the segment, which teams that didn't make the postseason last year are going to make the postseason this year. And it's the Detroit, Kansas City, Baltimore, Dallas. No one even mentioned Washington, even though they were the team the year before that went farther than Dallas or Detroit did the year before in the NFC. All right. Bobby in North Carolina has been on hold. Bobby, thanks as always. Go ahead.
Happy Friday, Kev.
You too.
I've been reading a lot of stuff this morning and hearing people freaking out on the schedule. The schedule is what it is. Everybody knew before last night who we were playing, just didn't know, when we were going to be playing. So I know that right now on paper, the first 8 or 9, 10 games looks kind of daunting, but hopefully we'll be healthy. You know what I'm saying? At the beginning of this year. So we're catching the Eagles and Dallas, 2 road games. Hopefully that's going to be the healthiest we, going to be all year. So I don't have a problem with it. I'm still sticking on my 10 wins that I think I told you a long time ago. I mean, I feel like we're going to win 10, 10 get a break or two. Who knows? You might win 11 or 12 games. But I like the team. We just improve, a couple more receivers in the receiver room. I think we're ready to go to work, man, and, line up. And like G said, you play who's on the schedule. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just go play.
Yeah, I mean, we've known the schedule since the season
Yeah.
ended. I think that there is some value in seeing how it's laid out. I think net rest is an important thing to focus in on. I think West Coast teams coming east playing at 1 o'clock, that's a benefit for them.
1 o'clock.
I actually like the way it's laid out for them. But again, like we all know as NFL fans, even though many of us ignore this every year, the schedule playing, that game of it's not about who you're playing. It's about when you play them. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes, what looks the most daunting ends up being the easiest and vice versa.
Exactly right. So, but I like the team. I like the makeup of it. So, and I actually think Five stays healthy. I'm looking for a big bounce back year from him if he can stay on the field. And I think that's why they've got these 4 primetime games, because I think the league knows that we've got a superstar and everybody wants to see him. So, have a good weekend, brother.
All right, Bobby, thanks. Bob in Ocean City. Bob, go ahead.
Good morning, fellas.
What's up, Bob?
The schedule. I want to go up to Philly prepared and ready to rock, and then have the Cowboys come in and ready to rock them.
Well, we're going to Dallas. They're not coming in. The first 2 games are road games.
That's what I mean. But we're still going to go there.
Yep.
Let's get the 2 right away, then followed up by the world champions. They're challenged right away in all 4. What give, say, 4-4-4 the whole season? I think we can go 3-1. I hope to go 2-2 the next 4. I'll let you know the rest of the schedule, but I think 12 wins is easily attainable with the add-ons. This kid out of South Carolina is good. The linebacker's incredible. There's going to be some guys moved around that we didn't see on the team. They're going to have pluses this year that we've had on the team, Kevin. I'm excited. I can't wait to go 2-0 in our division and have the world champions come into our stadium.
Thanks,
Love it.
Bob. Appreciate it. Just thinking about some of the teams, like Philadelphia has been on this major run for a while now, and then last year flamed out, not to the point where they really sucked at the end of the year, but that playoff loss against a banged-up San Francisco team, even though they were a little bit healthier for the playoff game, was a bad loss. I mean, they were, they were the better team on paper. They were at home. And they looked disinterested in a lot of ways, A.J. Brown in particular. I mean, isn't there a step back year for Philly at some point? Maybe it's this year. Maybe this is it for Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia. The Sam Darnold situation, the Dallas situation will just go there next. They've added a new defensive coordinator. They've added defensive pieces, including Caleb Downs at number 1 overall. They had sort of the same focus that we had, not to the same degree of adding so many new players. Getting their guy Overshown back is going to be a big deal for them. I think he is an ascending, excellent player, if not a star player. They've got to be much better on defense. Dallas does. It's like our team. There's not that much of a difference in that. The big difference is they are lethal at every skill position spot offensively, but that's where they the scoring wasn't an issue for them last year. Stopping people was an issue, and we'll see whether or not they've improved that. But Seattle, man, I wasn't shocked watching that team as the season went on that they were in the Super Bowl. I liked the Rams more than Seattle throughout the year because I liked Stafford over Darnold more than anything else. But God, were they good defensively. But can Darnold do that again? Can they be as balanced as they were without Kenneth Walker in the backfield? They'll have Charbonnet, and they'll have the other kid from Notre Dame that they picked at 32 in the first round. Defense is variable year to year, more so than offense. Will they be as dominant defensively? I will say this about the Seahawks, man. They do have an O-line, and they do have an elite wide receiver situation with JSN, and then their others, Kupp and keeping Sheehan was big for them. But But man, that division, with the three teams at the top, the Rams to me, if you tell me Stafford plays 17 and they remain, relatively healthy everywhere else, they look like the best team on paper to me. They look like the best team on paper. Seattle, I'm not going to put there because I'm still not sure about Darnold. I know he played great, and still at times there were games like that first game at SoFi against the Rams. He was terrible. Threw 4 picks in the game. But they were really good at the end of last year. I mean, they dominated San Francisco in that key game in that final week of the season. They obliterated San Francisco in the playoff rematch. The Rams had them. Another special teams gaffe kind of cost them like it did that Thursday night game. And then, wow, that was an absolute beatdown in the Super Bowl. I mean, those first 3 quarters for the Patriots, I mean, think back to that game because we're going to get that game in the opener. I mean, literally, they could not advance the ball forwards for the first 3 quarters of the game. And then they finally hit on a couple of things in the fourth quarter. All right. Schedule talk break until Ben joins us at 12. Up next, I want to go back to something I played on the show yesterday because there was a lot of reaction from some of you who are big Wizards fans and very much into this draft. But it was something that Darren Peterson said in his interview about his interview with the Wizards. You'll hear that again. Plus, there is some trade rumor stuff out there, if not legitimate reporting from guys like Brian Windhorst about what the Wizards will do with the top pick. We'll get to those things and a few others after this.
I know you talked to the Wizards. Did you learn anything new about the organization through those conversations?
I was surprised by how much they wanted to talk about like Darren as a person today instead of basketball. I probably asked 2 basketball questions and the rest was about like me.
I wonder if he expressed that surprise because he seemed bothered by it during the interview with the Wizards. That would be interesting to know because that's an off-putting answer. From my guy, Ned. Ned writes, spot on Peterson's answer. How detached do you have to be to not know why they're asking questions about you versus your basketball? Seemed arrogant. It's not the word I would use, Ned. It seems detached and or disingenuous. I would certainly lean towards the second part of that because I don't know how they could have sheltered him from the storm that was swirling around him the entire season. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, Darren Peterson played at Kansas this year. He was from the jump, a projected number 1 pick overall. Now that kind of happened in late, summer of 25, because if you go back to the early part of 25, people were talking about Cam Boozer. Even if you go back to 24, the all too early 26 mock drafts, it was kind of Boozer back then. But anyway, Darren Peterson, incredible talent, incredible scorer, effortless, methodical, doesn't get sped up. SGA's a comp. There are a lot of different comps for him. He actually comped himself to Devin Booker. I didn't like that comp. I don't see him playing like Devin Booker, but I guess that's his favorite player. But the storyline around Darren Peterson all season long was really a dual storyline. Number one is, wow, is he good? And number two why doesn't he play a lot? Are they load managing him? Is he legitimately hurt? And he missed big games. He missed 11 of the 35 games Kansas played. He checked out of 5 games after he played in those games, complaining about ankle injuries or cramping. There was clearly a cramping issue that put him in the emergency room at one point before the season started, where he says he thought he was dying. I'm not disputing any of the physical ailments he had during the season as, psychosomatic or an excuse for load management or whatever. It's very possible that all of it was legitimate. The most recent story was creatine usage, overusage. That caused the hydration issues, which caused the cramping. The most notable absence was a stunning absence. Early February, Kansas is getting ready to host the number 1 team in the country, Arizona, in one of the season's biggest games. He goes through warm-ups, the whole thing, and pulls himself from the game 30 minutes before tip. Seemed to frustrate the hell out of Bill Self and the Kansas staff, but they moved on. They won the game in that particular game. Yeah. Right? I'm forgetting. They beat BYU in a game which he took himself out of in the second half. But anyway, the storyline with him all year long, A, he's good. B, what's going on? For him to act like he was surprised, and if you watch the answer, I would have said, describe how he looked when he answered that question, bothered about the Wizards wanting to know more about him than his game. First of all, I had Brian Keefe on the show yesterday. I asked him, what do you typically want to learn? We want to learn about them. So even if he didn't have all of this stuff around him, swirling around him, they're still going to ask questions trying to learn more about the person. That's what these interviews are always about. The combine in Chicago for the NBA, the combine in Indy for the NFL. You got the tape. You know he can play. You know what, you think about his basketball. But yes, there's no way it was like, oh my God, I'm surprised you're asking me about me because my circle of people kept me sheltered all season long, and I had no idea people were talking about the games that I missed. It's not that. There's no chance it was that. It was dishonest. And looking bothered by that. I wonder if he expressed that in front of the team. I'm telling you, I had John Fanta on the show Monday. I asked John about the thought about Darren Peterson around the league and what the concerns would be. And he said, the circle. And if the team isn't comfortable, that the people around Darren Peterson don't know that once he becomes a pro, their vote doesn't count anymore, they won't take him. This will be a fascinating watch to see if teams, after interviewing him, after doing all their due diligence, say, unbelievable talent, but not worth that level of an investment. Is it possible he could fall to 3 or 4 in the draft? Yeah, I think it's possible. Ben Standig next. Ben Standig is with us, as he is every Monday and Friday. At Ben Standig on X, he has a Substack called Last Man Standing. You should subscribe. Costs hardly anything, and you get Ben's everyday reporting and covering of the team. He's got a podcast also by the same name, Last Man Standing. You can get that anywhere you get your podcasts. So the day after the schedule reveal. First of all, real quickly, like this has now gotten to the point where it's so anticlimactic when we get to 8 p.m. on the night that they've said they're going to reveal the schedule, because pretty much anybody and everybody have seen it and leaked it, and most teams' entire schedule by about 6 p.m. Eastern has been leaked. Do you think the league will do anything about this? How does that happen? How does it just, I guess too many, they're letting the teams know too far in advance?
Yeah, it is. I'm always confused by this. This is one part of the NFL world where I just don't dive into, in terms of like trying to chase down the games. And, it's funny. I hadn't really thought about it, but like you just said, like we ruined the Christmas morning aspect of opening up the present and saying, oh, what's going on here? It's all over. It's one thing to announce the international game, but like in general, yeah, this is all too much. The people who report these things are not, like, I don't even know who they are 364 days of the year.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They just show up for this, and I'm like, who are these people? I don't know. I don't get it, and I don't like it. I mean, I don't know what the league can do, without knowing the exact source. I mean, like Jordan Schultz was pumping out like half the games, it felt like, yesterday, and then there's all the random people. So I don't know if there's anything that they can do. I don't even know if they care. But because as long as you're talking about the league, they're happy with
exactly.
it. But yes,
that's probably
I prefer. Yeah, I prefer the surprise, but this is the world we're in.
I'll come back to kind of the arching, when will enough be enough with the NFL at the end of this conversation. But go ahead, give me your thoughts after seeing the overall unveiling of the games that we already knew about, but now we can put dates and times to.
Well, I guess let me start with a couple of positive things. I'm sure you've seen, but various metrics have shown that from a rest perspective. So the days
I went through it all.
That Washington has, rest versus their opponents, that they are very favorable. ESPN had a list of, like, I think since 2002, the top 25 teams benefiting from net rest, and this Commanders team is like right in the middle of that list. So, for what, I mean, obviously you have to be good enough for any of that to matter, but that's definitely a benefit, something they didn't have as much last year, or they didn't have it all last year.
No, they had the third worst. They had the third worst last year in net rest days. The top 5 net rest advantage teams went 54-31 last year. The 5 worst net rest disadvantage teams went 31-54. So Warren Sharp's been doing this for years now. There is something to it. And Washington had a terrible situation last year. They're +9 in net rest days this year, which should put them somewhere near the top 5. I haven't seen the full study that Warren usually does, but it would have been top 5 last year. So it is favorable. Yes.
Yeah, so there's that. They've got 2 home games against, arguably the 2 best teams in the NFC, in the Rams and the Seahawks. Both games are at 1:00 though, which
right.
typically or often means that the team's traveling from the west to the east. That's often not a good sign for them, body clock and whatnot. So considering the opponents, that's not a bad deal. And the second half of the season, are really kind of like after like week 10, 11, somewhere in there. The schedule on paper softens up. So if they can, have a decent first half, even just, sort of 500 or better, then they could have they could really take advantage of what's to come. Now, I'm sure you've already discussed it. Obviously, the front of the schedule is loaded. I mean, if you tell me they start 0-3 going to London, I mean, it would be hardly a surprise with 2 division road games and then hosting Seattle. The first 6 weeks, just the nature of the schedule, going London, back home for an NFC East game, then flying cross country to San Francisco. I mean, that's a lot. And then even coming out of the week 7 bye to have Eagles and Rams, and then, but then you have, Yeah, no, Eagles, Rams. I mean, it's if they can get through that stretch, like I said, somewhere around 500, I think that would be a pretty huge deal for them. But yeah, that we knew the schedule. Like you said, we knew the opponents. It's just the order. They just backloaded the teams. You're like, okay, maybe you can check off a win there without thinking too hard, and they're all towards the back. And that is, like I said, if they can survive that first 8-9 weeks, then they should be in pretty good shape. But we'll see.
Yeah, as it appears right now, like you said, on paper. But it's the NFL schedule has a way of kind of duping you from what you thought when you first saw it year in and year out. I do take a lot of substance out of net rest, which they're in a good position this year. And I, like you mentioned, right off the bat, that the benefit of two West Coast teams playing early 1:00 games on the East Coast. That is, usually I can tell you from an ATS and against the spread number, it's very favorable in terms of outright, wins by the East Coast teams. It's still favorable, just not as favorable as the ATS number. But to have really, at least on paper, the two best teams on your schedule that you're playing at home get to come all the way across the country and play early 10 a.m. their time starts, usually works in the advantage of the East Coast team. So what else is there on the schedule? I wanted to get to this because it's fun to play this game, with the schedule and look at it. And it's fun just to see where, the games will be played. And like I pointed out, I actually thought this was a possibility because of Jaden, that they would be featured in standalone, nationally televised spots. And they got 5 of those with potentially, 2 more with the flex on the Saturday possibilities in week 16 and week 17. They're only one of 2 teams, Tampa being the other, that have a chance to be in those spots. But do you think, and this is a big NFL question, and after a day like yesterday and to see, and we knew it was coming, but to see, 5 standalone games before you even get to the weekend on Thanksgiving, with a Thanksgiving Eve game and a triple header and a Black Friday game, and now a triple header on Christmas Day and a game on Christmas Eve. And going, they did not care this year. They had an option, but they didn't care. They decided we're going to play on the college football first round, triple header Saturday. We're going head to head with at least 2 of their games. They don't care. Do you think there's a tipping point with the NFL? Is there a point in which saturation is a thing and people start to turn away? Because we are going to get 18 of these over probably 20 weeks, not that far out in the future. Do you think there's a point where they could sort of tip it in the other direction?
Well, I think we may be there now, at least in the sense of like discussing it, because you and I are talking about it. But I've now seen this topic raised in several other places over the last 24 hours, and I do think it's a concern. Look, I know there are people who would be very happy if you just pump the NFL into an IV into their veins and just had it 24/7 at all times, and God bless if that's you, but I would like a break at some point to get away from this. And look, we can all just not watch it. I mean, of course, but we're addicted, whether it's because of gambling or fantasy football or just to be part of the conversation, or you just like watching football. It's hard to miss these things. Plus, it's only the one game a week. If I don't see, the Orioles play or the Yankees play, like there'll be another one tomorrow. And same thing kind of with the NBA and the NHL. Football is obviously very different. So, yeah, to me, it's getting nuts. I mean, the fact that there are 5 games around Thanksgiving over 3 days, right? I mean, come on. Like, not to mention, like, people with like families around the holidays. It's one thing if your team is playing. I think people probably get that. But when it's these other games and you're like, well, I didn't watch these too. They're like, no, you don't. It does seem like it is too much. And also, like, I see a lot of people taking pleasure in the NFL now taking over Christmas from the NBA, and whatever. From a business perspective, I get it. So be it. I like the other sports too. We really can't just let the NBA have Christmas. Like, I get it. Again, I get it from the business perspective, but just let it happen. I mean, I don't even watch necessarily all the NBA games by any stretch, but at the same time, come on, just go. Just let them have that day. You have all the other ones. But so, yeah, I do think we're getting a tipping point. Now, again, I don't know what that means. It may just be part of the conversation we all have going forward, and maybe it takes several years before there's actual real pushback on it. But, yeah, I think we're at least now having the conversation of like, okay, what are we doing here?
Ben thinks that we should just let the NBA have Christmas. And on the other hand, Netflix is offering us $150 million for 2 games on Christmas Day. And it's Wednesday, because that's what it was the first year they did it. We're going to take the $150 million. Ben, go back to your office. We'll be fine without you in this meeting. I think there's the NFL I think we've had this conversation now for 10, 15 years running. You know, when Thursday night became a consistent all year thing, that was going to be, that's too much. College football plays on Thursday night. We like those games or whatever it was. I don't think that they can give us too much of this. I don't. And I think part of them is the scheduled nature, and I know we're enhancing the schedule, but the time of the year, the people who, people are in a rhythm. This is comfort food, and people never get sick of comfort food. I know people, Ben, who don't even love the NFL, but love it on TV as background on a Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening. It's just part of everybody's rhythm now. In the fall into the winter. We're going to have a Super Bowl on Valentine's Day this coming year. The first playoff games won't be until January 16th, I think it is. And when we go to 20/18, that'll be the real test. Like, did it last too long? Usually by mid-February, we are rid of the NFL and we're okay with it at that point. I don't know. I don't think they can give me too much. I really don't. My biggest hang-up, I don't like that they are going head-to-head with college football on a big college football playoff day. I don't think that's necessary to, present that to everybody. The college games rated pretty well against the NFL games last year. So there may be a case where the NFL, it doesn't make sense to go head-to-head with 3 college football games. But the NFL did outrate it. I think they won that ratings battle. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think I'm in that camp of you can't give me too much.
Look, I mean, it is, we all sort of talk about it, but like the Super Bowl is basically a national holiday at this point. I mean, I know people who couldn't care less about 1 second of football.
Right.
But they'll watch the Super Bowl, and obviously there's the ancillary stuff, the commercials and whatever else. But they'll sit through that because they understand that this is a thing. Well, what other sport? Nothing else is like that. Not even like the Academy Awards anymore or any. Like it's just this. So we are addicted to football without question, and they are taking full advantage of it. And again, like you said, I totally get the business side of it. But we'll see. Like I said, I think the real issue is it's hard to stay away. I mean, even if you say you want to, and I guess the thing is also with phones these days, even if you're on the move, even if you're not sitting directly in front of the television, you still can know exactly what's going on. You can watch it on your phone. So there's all kinds of ways to consume it, and that's obviously another component to all this.
Betting. Fantasy, the rhythm of the fall for most people, back to school, back to work, the scheduled nature of it, it just all works. It just works for them. I mean, they even got the break of COVID happening in the spring so that they could actually play their season on time, in 2020, and it was a blessing for everybody. There's very little competition. I mean, the World Series doesn't even really present that much competition to it anymore. The biggest competition they have is other football, college football. It's an amazing product in our country. Like it is, after the biggies, Coke, McDonald's, etc. It's right there. It's the thing that's keeping over-the-air television alive, and still, I bet you in 10 years, there's very little over-the-air broadcast available because they'll be getting paid too much by the streaming or whatever else has come our way with AI and anything else.
There was a tagline years ago when we were growing up, like, baseball, apple pie, and Chevrolet.
Yeah.
That would not be baseball now. That would be, and it was basically to describe America. What is America about? Football would be that. And I will just say, from the schedule perspective, like with the job that I have, I honestly can never know what the hell the day of the week it is anymore. I have to constantly look it up in real time. But during the season, obviously, they don't always play on Sunday, but you know when it's an NFL Sunday, and that does help regulate my week. So honestly, the off season, I am like completely unmoored from like what the hell, the calendar. Like I don't know what the hell's going on most of the time. But the NFL season, there's a rhythm to it, like you said.
Well, look, they do. I mean, they play 2 Monday night games and they play a Thursday night game, but every other game is Sunday, although they could finish the season with 3 straight Saturday games. That's in play as we speak. Real quickly, the preseason, they've announced their preseason games, correct?
Correct.
And what are they?
It's they're hosting Miami. Unfortunately, it's that direction, not the other way. Hosting Miami, then at Detroit, and then at Baltimore. The Baltimore week will include a joint practice. I'm sorry, the Miami week will include a joint practice, and my guess is Baltimore will eventually. Obviously they tried last year and then it didn't happen. But Miami is happening, and Baltimore, I'm assuming, will happen, or I would presume would happen as well.
Why am I blanking on the Miami quarterback? I'm looking it up right now. Who's their quarterback?
Malik Willis.
Oh, Malik Willis, right. The number 1 free agent quarterback, just as everybody predicted this time last year. That he would be the number 1 quarterback in free agency. All right. What else? Oh, I'm going to ask you something we asked callers, I think, earlier this week. And that is, now that we are, pretty much complete with everything, of course, there's still one thing remaining, and that is the addition, potentially, of a Brandon Ayuk, Stephon Diggs, et cetera. But as you look back on what they, focused in on and what they accomplished or didn't accomplish, what do you think is the biggest, the most likely regret they will have about their offseason?
Ooh, most likely regret. Well, look, I'm totally fine with the getting younger faster on defense, and they had to spend a lot of money and resources to do that. First round pick, a ton of money for Owe, and et cetera. Cool. We all understand that. But this is 3 years into the Jaden Daniels era, and he still doesn't have a lot of weapons around him. I mean, the 2024 season was so bizarre in a lot of ways, and part of it was looking at the playmakers around him. You're just like, there's not much here. How is this possibly going to work, let alone be one of the most efficient offenses we've seen in some time? But it's not much different now. Obviously, Terry McLaurin's still the constant. We can just say maybe Chigga Conquo will give them more options than Zach Ertz, but he's not. Is he going to be the red zone target that Zach Ertz is? I don't know about that. The offensive line is certainly better on paper, but still questions at left guard and center. So it's not like it's completely clean across the line. And again, I believe that when you have a great quarterback, that guy, the reason, one of the main reasons they're great is they lift up everybody around him. But he's still only going in his 3rd year. Like he's not a 9-year or 10-year vet still. Let him have that kind of help the way Mahomes did, the way you see New England helping out Drake May with pieces, the way the Bears went hard to add playmakers around Caleb Williams. So, look, again, the Ayuk thing, who knows what that's going to be. And if he's anything close to what he was, pre-injury and everything, well, then they got exactly that guy. But putting that aside, because that's just a total wild card, I think that to me, and maybe it's not a regret for them, but to me, it's a problem. Also, they'll go back to last year too. Like going into the year, it was like, wait a minute, you have no depth behind Noah Brown, who's unfortunately always hurt, and Terry McLaurin, who missed all of camp. So they either don't think that you need to do a lot at receiver, or whatever the reason, it just hasn't happened. So I think to me that would probably be the biggest thing.
I mean, I think that they, in their efforts for Pierce and Dobbs, obviously they recognize that was something they wanted to accomplish. They weren't able to do it. We'll see if they do it with Ayuk or with Diggs. In thinking about this over the last, few weeks, I hope this doesn't happen, because I think you and I have both learned that they actually have confidence in Allegretti. The other offensive linemen have confidence in Allegretti. He's apparently a better communicator, maybe than Biotish. But Tyler Linderbaum is such a good player. Forget that he's a center. He's just a high-level interior offensive lineman. And at the end of the day, they had the money to overpay for a great player, and a great player that would fill an actual need. I hope that they don't regret it, but I wonder if there was an opportunity to exceed the Raiders' offer and bring him here. Maybe he didn't want to live in this area anymore, or Baltimore, the East Coast. I don't know. But there was, a price that probably would have brought him here, and it would have been based on the projections, a big-time overpay. But for elite players, that's where you go and overpay, and he's an elite player, and it happens to be at a position that they need. So we'll see how it works out. But in thinking about that, that's the one where it's like, why not just give him the money and get in a great player?
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I mean, to me, I'm not saying centers are dime a dozen, but that is like the one spot, the guard to a degree, but more center, like where you can kind of get away with something less. But
among the offensive linemen, people will say that in the game, that's actually the position, and we think of it as a high IQ position. Intellectually, you've got to be all over it. But they in the people you talk to that are in football will say, yeah, not so much. Much more important to have a great left tackle. Of course, we know that.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I understand why the Raiders did what they did. They're bringing in the number one pick. Their offensive line was horrendous across the board. So, and they had, they're not winning this year, right? They're still rebuilding. Whereas here, by next off season, Jaden Daniels might be signing an extension. I was going to say a max contract, but that's the other sport. But yeah, whatever the version of a quarterback max contract is, he may be getting that. And then of course, where all their money is going becomes a bigger deal. But I will say, to your general point, that look, they do have confidence in Allegretti, and that's cool. But it is to go from a guy in Biotish who's been a solid starter in the league. I think some people might have been overstating, but he's been totally solid, totally fine, and nobody was clamoring for him to go away. That they didn't get at least more help there. I know they drafted Matt Goulden in the 6th round. Sure, we'll see. And Allegretti, he's played the position a little bit. He's been around the league. He was a starting offensive lineman here for a couple of years, played with the Chiefs, all those things. But that's a question, at least to a degree. So, I think your general point about the center position is I'm with you on that. That could be a place where they look back and go, oh, snap, what do we do here?
Yeah. Especially when you just look at, Philadelphia's defensive front week 1 with Vic Fangio, Dallas's revamped defensive front, Seattle's defensive front. Allegretti, at least on paper as it looks now, is going to get tested early. Quinnen Williams, the Philly.
Carter.
I mean, it's not just Carter, obviously. It's Carter and Davis both. And then Seattle's monsters on defense as well. So that's going to be an interesting start to the season, and we'll learn a lot about the O-line. All right, thanks. Appreciate it. Have a good weekend. Who do you like tonight, by the way, in the 2 games? Do you think we see Game 7s or not?
I'm going to believe in the Timberwolves. I just think they do have that fight in them. The other series, man, I don't care about that other series, largely because I don't believe either team has a prayer of doing anything in the finals, so I don't care. But I'll say Cleveland wins. Detroit, they have one guy that can score, and the fact that Jalen Duren, their other All-Star, has been benched because he can't score, and then you have with Thompson out there, it's another non-scorer. They are just missing offense. They have got to this offseason go get more. But in this case, I just don't think they have enough scoring options. Even though, look, they should have just won this last game. They were up 9 with 3 minutes and change to go and blew it. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I'm actually into that series because I just don't want to see Cleveland win. I just do not want to see James Harden advance. And I really do like Cade Cunningham. But you're right. That is it. I mean, he's going to have to go for 45 tonight. I mean, he went for 39 the other night, and they lost in overtime. He actually got tired, and they started to double him. I don't know why they don't double him the entire game and force the others to beat him. But looking forward to Minnesota tonight. Hopefully they can force a 7th game. But, man, that Wemby, Ben, I've never seen anything like him, ever.
I was thinking about this the other day. If you said you can look at all the sports, NBA, NHL, MLB, NFL, and said you get to back one player's career from here for the next decade, any player, I'm picking him over every quarterback, over everybody. What he is.
Yeah, it'd be him or Ohtani or him. Those would be the top two.
Ohtani, sure, but even that, the pitcher only goes every 5 days. You only bat, 4 times a day. All that.
No, give me Wemby. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, it's remarkable. The Thunder better win it this year, or the Knicks, or whoever, because after this, I don't know that anybody else is going to be touching the Spurs from it. Although I think they still have to add a little bit more around him. Like, they got to upgrade the Aaron Fox. But that aside, he's
Aaron Fox
the real deal.
Actually has played. I mean, he is at times when he is at his best and he's interested, he's impossible to stay in front of. Impossible to stay in front of. I actually don't. What is it about him that leads to the inconsistency? Is he just not always into it? I mean, I haven't watched the Spurs all year, but I love watching him in these playoff games. He's very difficult to check. He's so quick, so fast. Both of those things.
Yeah, I just his general style is not so much for me. But yeah, obviously he's an all-star level player and all that. I just think that for what Wembanyama is, I think you need a more of a classic. If not second banana, like a 1B to his 1A, and I just don't think that that's Fox ultimately. So I just think they have to upgrade that. But hey, it might be Dylan Harper. Dylan Harper looks pretty
Castle.
Awesome already.
I mean, yeah,
right, yeah. So that's the thing. They can move Fox, still have 2 guards that look to be have a chance to be elite, and then get whatever another big or somebody to help. They probably also could use a Charles Oakley type to be there as his bodyguard, knowing
for sure
that Wemby's going to get beat up for sure, and to have that enforcer there.
All right, talk to you later. See you.
Awesome, man. See you.
Ben Standig, everybody, at Ben Standig on X to get linked to his Substack, which I highly recommend. So the conversation that we were having, and today's the day to do it off of a schedule in which basically they have now dotted every holiday or holiday eve or post-holiday with football. Is there a tipping point? Is there a saturation point, do you think, with the NFL at some point down the road? Or is it unlimited in terms of how much you can be given? Because we're, only one day this particular schedule, a Tuesday, away from having football on every day of the week. Is there a time in which you think enough would be enough? 301-230-0980. Phone lines open. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. The NFL, football in general, dominates the top of television ratings charts. Every year, when you see a list of the top 100 most watched programs annually, more than 80% of them are football games. The biggest audiences we have for broadcast TV are football games. Of course, the Super Bowl leads the way, but the two championship games are close. Games on holidays are always among the top 10 programs watched during the course of a year. And early season games like the actual kickoff game this year on a Wednesday night is always highly rated. We get football on Sundays. We get football on Sunday nights. We get football on Sunday mornings. We get Monday night football. We get Wednesdays this year on two different occasions. We get Thursday nights every week. We get Fridays. We get Saturdays, especially later in the season. We've got holiday triple headers on Thanksgiving and Christmas. We have holiday Eve games on Thanksgiving Eve and on Christmas Eve. We have day after Thanksgiving football on Black Friday and day after Christmas football on a Saturday. We have 9 international games, a record number this year, with 6 of them starting on Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. Games are on Netflix, Amazon, Peacock, YouTube, in addition to all of the over-air networks. The estimated price average nationwide, if you want to watch every single NFL game in 2026, is $1,650. The NFL's extending later in the season with the 17th game added a few years back over 18 weeks, and the likelihood that this will be an 18-game regular season schedule played over 20 weeks. That means starting at some point, I would guess in the next 3 to 5 years, the football season will start 1 week earlier on Labor Day and will extend to President's Day weekend. Some years even beyond that. Is there a tipping point, a point in which the NFL goes too far? They provide too much product for too much expense, and the pendulum starts to swing back, and people start to watch less of it, consume less of it, go to games less often. 301-230-0980. This particular schedule put out by the NFL, I mean, includes new opportunities. The Thanksgiving Eve game is brand new. The Australia game giving us a Wednesday and Thursday night game at the beginning of the season before we get to the Sunday slate is new, although we've had Friday night games from Brazil a few times here recently. The expansion's coming. There's no doubt. My point of view, and this is very subjective, I can't see a day in which I say enough is enough. I don't get to the end of the season and say, I'm done with this. I'm tired of it. You know, I'm at a different point in my life. I don't have young kids anymore. That's a busier situation. For me, I'm looking forward to 18 games. I'm looking forward to, by the way, less football in the preseason, and that would knock the preseason down to 2 games. I actually think the NFL has the best product, but also has the worst product, which is preseason football. It is a total waste of my time, preseason football. I think it's one of the worst products that any of the major sports offer up. But in terms of the regular season, it just fits. It fits like the perfect glove. It hits you right when you get back to normalizing your routine, getting back to work, kids getting back to school, weather starting to change, a beautiful time of the year, fall, especially in a lot of areas in the country, blending into holiday season and winter, where you are indoors more than you are in other portions of the year. The competition during the football season is minimal. It used to be playoff baseball in the World Series. That gets masked. I like watching playoff baseball, but people can do both. The scheduled nature of it fits into that time of year and with most lifestyles. It has become background noise for people who don't even love football. It certainly has been aided in terms of its growth and the crazy numbers by legalized sports betting and fantasy football. That was happening even before it was legalized, but it's even bigger now. For me, and I'm sure Malcolm Gladwell and others would say you're wrong, but there is no tipping point for this product. I mean, where was the tipping point for Coke and McDonald's? Disney, maybe Disney. I'd put this on par with certain products which have never, from a consumer standpoint in our country, have never really waned. I guess if it went year-round, that would be a problem. But as long as it stays in that September through February portion of the calendar, I can't get enough of it. That's my opinion. What's yours? 301-230-0980. Let's go to our guy Paulie in the 757. Paulie, go.
Big guy, how you doing? Hell to the W.
Yep.
I kind of agree with you and disagree in the same breath because you're right. I can't get enough of the NFL. But when you think about it and like you see the schedule, the games that get me is the holiday Eve game. I mean, that's kind of like a busy time. The night before the holidays.
Yeah.
Like either you get things situated with family or whatever, or come Christmas, you getting gifts or whatever, or you in the drunken stupor. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, yes. I think the Christmas Eve thing is actually more intrusive for a lot of people than Christmas Day, actually. Thanksgiving Day, that's built into our DNA, football and Thanksgiving. But Thanksgiving Eve is brand new, and that's kind of a family night, a party night for young people. It'll be interesting to see what kind of numbers it does. My guess is they'll kill it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe because I don't know how they do the ratings and stuff now. But like you said, Thanksgiving Eve is usually it is a party night.
Yeah,
a lot of your family's in town, people are back home, and things and such. So I don't know what the attention. Like you said, is new, so I don't know what the attention gonna be. But I'm just saying, that's just looking at it and thinking about it. But once Christmas Eve comes and Thanksgiving Eve gets here, then I'll be excited about the games and what's coming on, especially if our team is playing, which we're not playing the holiday schedule this year, which I'm kind of disappointed about. I love the holiday day games. So, yeah, man. But I would, like I said, I agree and I disagree with you. Just looking at it, like, man, why they got these holiday Eve games? That's crazy. But when it gets here, like you said, you'll be excited about it, man. So I think
my wife always asks this time of year, so are they playing on Thanksgiving or Christmas? And I was able to tell her no, but other teams are. Now that it still changes my day and my, nobody cares, but my work related to this show and the podcast around this team. But there's still football on, and I promise you, the people in my house, my sons will want it on even on Christmas Eve. But yes, it is on that day, especially if you've got young kids on Christmas Eve and you celebrate Christmas, that's a tough spot especially if your team is playing. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Is the NFL at a tipping point? Is it close to being overly saturated? Too much product? Anthony in D.C., go ahead.
Damn it.
Anthony, you're on.
Can you hear me? Kevin?
I got you.
Oh, okay. Sorry about
That's
that.
All right.
So let me say one thing off subject real quick. The Cavaliers in Detroit make it so hard on themselves offensively.
Of course.
Because they don't move the damn ball. It's ridiculous. But the subject at hand, the tipping point is going to be when they as they continually fragment the viewing segments of the nation. So I'm not paying for Netflix. I'm not paying for Peacock. I'm not paying for Yahoo. I mean, not Yahoo, but for YouTube. I pay enough for streaming as it is. I'm not going to continue to add on just to watch football. And I think at some point, a lot of the public will be hit with the same reality. I mean, before you know it, if you trying to get all the games available, you're looking at potentially $250, $300 a month.
Oh, no, much more than that.
Support that.
Oh, a month. Yeah, it was. I pulled something up right before this segment. $1,650 is the average price to watch every single game in 2026.
Right, and who's gonna really want to do that?
Well, people are doing it clearly.
Well, they're doing it now, but as prices increase, because it's going to be a while. If prices ever come down, it's going to be a while before they come down. So the prices are going to steadily increase, and people are going to have to make hard decisions. So that's where I see the tipping point being.
Yeah, I'm looking just like on the holidays. So on Thanksgiving, it's actually this is not updated. Thanks, Anthony. As always, stay there, Tony, Kevin. If you're on hold, we got to take a quick break. We'll come back and take a few more calls on this. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com. Ronimink playing much harder than Steve Sands told us it would play. The leaders are still at just 3 under. Matsuyama shot 3 under 67 today. He is in a co-lead tie with 5 other golfers. If you're wondering, is there a point in which it's too much? The NFL 301-230-0980. Kevin, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks, Kevin, for taking my call.
Sure.
I'm in the minority. I'm very old-fashioned, but it's too much. I mean, there needs to be balance in life. Is anything sacred anymore? I mean, Christmas Day, do we really need 3 football games? I would like to see a study of how football impacts our family life, our productivity. When you put a kid in front of a TV, they learn nothing. All they learn is how you win a football game. What is that going to do to serve them? I just think it has a corrosive effect on society when you go too far on some of these things. There needs to be balance. People need to read a book. My God,
Okay.
and learn to entertain themselves in different ways.
Look, I think we
That's
all
just my
understand it,
opinion.
especially those of us who have raised kids, about the harm of too much television, of less interaction socially, et cetera. But I think that horse left the barn several years ago. In terms of too much for the adult community, is it adding to your intellect? Probably not. Are you entertained by it? And is there a point in which you would stop being entertained? It sounds like for you, you've reached that point already.
Well, I don't agree with you that every regular season game is a good game. There are a lot of games during
I
the
didn't say that.
season that are just awful.
I didn't say that.
You said preseason games are bad. You like the regular season. Maybe I misread what
Well,
you
yeah,
said.
I think preseason is terrible, but I didn't say every single regular season game is great. No, of course not. I actually think, Kevin, you actually you just reminded me of something. The final week of the season, because there are so many meaningless games typically, is the worst weekend of the season. Now, there's no way of fixing that other than by adding more playoff teams. But I always find the final week of the season, you have like typically 3 games that matter and not many more than that. And that's usually the most boring weekend of the season. But go ahead, finish up your point if you have one.
Well, do you worry at all that the NFL has just too much power? That there should be some antitrust legislation. I mean, they dominate all the airwaves, and especially during the season, they have more money than they know what to do with. They influence Congress. I mean, it seems to me that when one organization gets that powerful in a society, to it, and
yeah, well. You're
not an
asking
expert in
questions
that
that I'm
area.
not, prepared to answer right now, whether or not there should be more antitrust with the NFL, whether or not it's too much of a monopoly, et cetera. I mean, I'm really focused more on, from an entertainment standpoint, is there a moment in which you'll stop being entertained as much? And it sounds like you've already gotten there. Thanks for the call, though, Kevin. Tony, finish it up for us. Is there a tipping point? Is there a point where there's just too much NFL football?
Well, the tipping point to me is probably now. Look, I love football. I love the NFL. I love college football. Hell, I'll go to high school games. My kid's been out of high school for decades. But a couple of things. I think a couple of callers back, he mentioned that they're going to so many streaming services now.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And to be fair and honest, I have a few of them, and I could watch things if I wanted to. But to me, it is just a little bit of a saturation point.
Okay. All right. I got to run, Tony. I'm up against the hard break here at the end of the show. Chris is coming up. But I would just say this. I personally don't feel we've reached it yet. But I think the big test will be when they go to 18 games over, more likely than not, 20 NFL weekends. Keep in mind, too, it's more of a football saturation thing than it is even an NFL saturation thing, because college football has gotten to the point where they may be at a tipping point. And it's kind of, you got to look at football because they run simultaneously as a combination of the NFL and college football. I hate that the NFL is going head-to-head with the college football playoff round one. I just think that's a bit too greedy for me. All right. Enjoyed it. Back on Monday. Chris is next.